And I think the big topic that leads us into is CheckDB, and is CheckDB being run differently? Or sorry, is CheckDB being run often?
Yeah, that's one of those, I don't know, challenging conversations we sometimes have with clients where some get it and they want to run CheckDB as frequently as we recommend. Others, they're like, well, we don't have enough IO, or we don't have enough processor power to run CheckDB very often, and they want to run it like once a month. And it's just it's just too risky to do it that way. I mean, we recommend when you can run CheckDB every single day. We even have a couple scenarios where we run it twice a day, but most of the time, once a day is reasonable. Where we run CheckDB on all the databases on your SQL Server once a day. But not only do we run CheckDB, but we make sure that the notification is set up if that job fails, that we get notified that there's something wrong. And we have additional notifications set up so that if a database does not get checked, meaning it failed or crashed somewhere along the way and aborted out without an error, that we know about it. And
Yeah, and I'm not sure what's worse. I know you and I have both had that sinking feeling where you either see that CheckDB has been running and failing and they didn't notice it, or we also get the customers that you sign on and you see CheckDB's never been run, or it's been run 5 years ago. So the real key there is to run CheckDB often, ideally daily. There is some instances where the backup solution that's in place or the database is so big, we talk about weekly, but I would say daily is certainly the gold standard that I like to do. I like to apply to customer servers and my own SQL servers.
I know whether we're starting out with a performance assessment or a SQL Server health assessment, or we're doing managed service customer, I know one of the first things you always do when we jump on a server before doing anything else is we run CheckDB to make sure that all those databases are clean before we ever start on it. And that way we know that the database is in good shape before we start trying to do anything to make it better.
Yeah, exactly. Why don't we dig into a little bit, Steve, how do we like to run CheckDB on customer systems?
Well, we use the Ola Hallegren scripts to help with this. And by default, that's set up with two different jobs primarily. One is the user databases and one is the system databases. And the system databases one almost always runs quickly. And then we get into the user database one, and we want to make sure that we run that after hours during a low load time. We try and avoid running that when things like index rebuilding is going on or other things that would cause a lot of IO. We try and do it in the slow time, and we try and check. I mean, we get every database checked every single day. Now, there's sometimes that we'll do that and find out that you might have 15 databases, and one of those databases is gigantic and the rest of them are small. Sometimes what we'll do with that is break that one big database out into a CheckDB job of its own, and then exclude that one on the other check so that we can do a little bit more parallelism there.
Yeah, and I think the big key there is we like that user databases, or the user databases minus if you're breaking it off into your own. And that's because when the customer adds another database 2 years down the road, it's automatically going to get checked every night. Versus some of the other ways to set, if you set it up manually, you built your own job, maybe you're specifying the database names and you add another database and you think you're running CheckDB on all your databases, but you're really not. You're missing the new one.
And that's one of those things that if you're using the default, what's the default maintenance tasks in SQL
Yeah.
Server, it's pretty common that people will set that up. You just pick, let's check all these databases, then you add a database later and it gets missed. So we really like to avoid the default maintenance tasks and either use the Ola Hallegren solution, which runs as a job, or if in some scenarios where it's too big to actually check every single day, we do a custom job that'll just go and look at the ones that haven't been checked recently and run those and try and get through about half of them every single day. We have several scenarios we've done that. But to do it as a SQL Server job, as a SQL Server agent job, rather than as a maintenance SQL Server scheduled maintenance task. So